Thank you, Paul, for the invitation, and I'm just so honored to be here again. Remember this, a year ago, probably in this same room, things were a lot different, right? The news from China had just come down. There was a lot of anxiety in the room last year, but I also felt a sense of confidence that because we had not been infected yet with African swine fever virus, we had a chance to be proactive, take some of our learnings from PED, put the science into high acceleration mode, and look what's happened. Look at what happened. Can you believe these last presentations and all the work that's been done and the wonderful work from Canada? And I'm just so excited about what's happened during this year on the edge with African swine fever. Now, we're not done yet. We're going to be at risk every day, all year, for many years. But we can do this. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about a couple of things we're doing, looking at actionables, as Paul would say. What can you do today after you go home? What can you implement on your farms? And maybe you already are, and I'm curious on some feedback about that. The support for this work is from the Foundation of Food and Agriculture Research. The great work SCHC does. You see some companies that you'll see their activities that they've helped to sponsor, and then the wonderful universities, the Board of Animal Health, the KSU group, Jeff Zimmerman, Gil Patterson, and Diego DL and Eric Nelson. Just this wonderful collaboration of brain power that together has come and worked with this from the beginning, basically. A year ago, we introduced the idea of responsible imports as a way to possibly mitigate the risk of incoming ingredients. Responsible imports, if you remember, was a challenge that our CEO, Luke Minion, proposed to us. How do we safely bring in these key ingredients using science? Can we develop a protocol? And so I sat down and put some principles of responsible imports together, and we talked about those last year, and you kind of see the list. And we're starting to talk about feed quarantine, a very different approach of thinking. We never thought about this. No one had ever considered viral half-life in feed, transport time, mitigation, all that stuff. What you see there on that list. These were the principles of responsible imports, and you can see by my little graphic there, it was a very, very big change in paradigm. Now, today, if we fast forward to right now, I'd like to tell you what some really key people in our company have done to put the concept into reality. And this is Dr. Roger Cochran and Dr. Arkin Wu, who received their PhDs from Kansas State University. Roger's our director of feed mills. Arkin's one of our nutritionists. It's these guys' efforts that have led taking the idea and putting it in reality. Let me briefly just show you what they've done, because it's just been fantastic in my opinion. So there's a China focus to begin with. Arkin oversees that. Audits at the manufacturing facility, audits at the port warehouse, mechanical biosecurity protocols put in place just like we use on farms, Danish entry rooms, clean and dirty lines, real simple, effective stuff. Arkin quickly realized that it's not so much contamination at the plant, it's contamination during transport to the port. And so they've made some significant changes in how the materials are moved from China to the United States, including sealed containers, like you see in the picture there, that are locked down at manufacturing and don't get opened until they're in the United States at the warehouse. So credit to Arkin for seeing that and making the wheels turn. And then audits. There's standardized audits that these guys have put together, and they're very, very detailed. It's great to have two scientists with that type of training involved in this process. So that's Arkin, so credit to Arkin. Now Roger, our director of feed mills, handles it from when it comes to the United States. And Roger, along with some colleagues, have organized an import warehouse. And this is a designated facility with separate entry and exit points for product coming in and product going out. It's got a sign-in sheet at the office where the certification needs to be delivered. Mechanical biosecurity protocols, again, are in practice throughout this facility. And it's really interesting, it's got a quarantine room where the products come in through a designated entry point and they sit for a specific period of time at a specific temperature. And it's an all-in, all-out room, basically, with its own forklift. You see a picture of it there, and they have now added a nice garage door that closes it down from the rest of the facility. And you see that little area with the cabinet and the disinfected footbath there, or the footpad. That's the transition zone where you move from the quarantine room to the storage area, or back and forth, where you don coveralls, boots, gloves, you step in the foot pad there. It's really cool. It's just like we're doing on farm. And the company they're working with has been very, very great and interested in putting this together. So really a great job by Roger. And then they've got the storage area. It's heated. There's, again, the protocols. Everything's labeled. It's really a professional entity. It's just wonderful to see how this has come to reality, again, with audits as well. So why is this such a good idea? Why is this such a good fit for the industry? There's some pretty key reasons here. Obviously, this is industry-driven. We're doing this. This is not government. The producers, the veterinarians, the industry is organizing this and putting it in place. That's paramount. It's very flexible. Within those principles, you can design this to fit your system or your company or your flows. Again, it's non-regulatory. We're leading, and that's what the government wants us to do. They'll help us out later on, hopefully, but right now the industry has to take the lead. And it doesn't affect trade in a negative way. We can still bring our products in, we understand them as high risk, and we can now manage them accordingly to keep them safe. So there's a lot of power to this concept, and I'm hoping a lot of you are practicing it right now. But credit to Roger and Arkin. Second piece of update is just on the feed additives. This work is in process, but really the goal here is to look at what can we add to the feed that might have antiviral properties to reduce risk. And you may have heard of our ice block challenge model we're using right now, which has got 3 domestic viruses. I can't work with ASF and this BSL2 at Pipestone, but we're using these 3 domestic viruses, kind of creating a hotspot where the feed will come to the bin, treated or not, and the block of ice containing the 3 viruses will get dropped in the top, and then nature will take its course and deliver those viruses into the animal airspace. So it is a nice design, treatments and controls, 100 pigs per room. They're eating the feed naturally, and we're measuring, is the virus entering through the feed? Are the pigs contacting the virus, and are they getting infected? What are the effects of the mitigants? And versus a positive control room where we've got non-mitigated feed. So the products we've tested so far, 7 in number, several different inclusion rates. You see the companies there that have stepped forward. They brought funding, they brought product, they brought expertise. And so Novus, their Activate, Chemin, you see the products there we've tested, ADM, PMI, and Anatox. So there's been great buy-in from the industry. And I commend the feed industry in general for being so proactive in this whole crisis point last year and up to today. What we're seeing right now is this model really works. We can infect in the non-treated control room, we can infect pigs with PRRS, Seneca, or PED through the feed, through natural feeding behavior. We can see clinical disease in the absence of mitigation. In all cases, the performance and health is better on mitigated feed. It seems to have almost an ameliorative effect, where the pathogens there, we don't sterilize the feed, but the pigs seem to perform and have a higher level of health when they're consuming the mitigated feed. Really no differences yet across the products. They've all been much more effective than the non-mitigated scenario. And the good news is the FDA is reaching out and requesting collaboration and maybe looking at labels to get these antiviral properties on label. So the FDA is wanting to be very proactive as well, so credit to them. Next steps, we're going to test 10 more products. By the end of the year, we're going to have 17 total mitigants tested under the same experimental design. You see the names of the companies that, again, have stepped forward with resources and want to be involved. I'm excited about this. The other thing we're doing is all this information goes to Megan as she looks at feed mitigation with the actual Georgia strain in her BSL3. I think it's got great application, especially at the feed mill, as a protectant for that feed should it get contaminated while in the bulk bin, for example. A great pork supply seems to fit secure pork supply, and I think Dr. Lola made a nice comment, a very visionary comment at the NPIC when he stood up and said, basically the whole sow herd in the United States needs to be on a mitigant of some type. We have to have some type of protection for the national herd of some type. And the good news about this research is we're going to have multiple options for people to look at. We're going to take all 17 of those products, we're going to publish them in peer review, and then there's going to be a big table, and people are going to be able to say, this one fits my price range, it fits my mill requirements, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where this is going, okay? And it's really all built on what some great veterinarians would say, right? Some, unfortunately, aren't here anymore. But if Bob was here, a great Canadian, he would say, we got to work together to keep this out. If Al was here, from the U.S. perspective, he'd say exactly the same thing. And if Carlos was here, he'd be pounding the podium saying, we have got to work together as a continent to keep this out. So with that, that's my time, Paul, and I think we're right on schedule.